All right, this is the first video tutorial on how to make a box, not the first video tutorial on how to make a box. That's hopefully straightforward enough to talk about in a single video, but the first video of a series of videos about CADing for a part of a Canvas course on CADing that will be not accessed, or I guess not accessible publicly, but if you've happened to find this video on YouTube, because that's where these videos are kept, hello, you're not the intended audience, but it works all the same. We're doing Fusion 360. This video tutorial and all the video tutorials assume that you have redeemed at the very least a 1-year license to use Fusion 360. That you've set it up already. You kind of know how to use the controls. Either you've know how to use the Fusion 360 controls. Maybe you've set the default controls to SolidWorks, which I would personally recommend. And I may also ramble a little bit in these. Feel free to 2x speed me up. But hopefully, right now we're gonna jump straight into this space here that I'm dragging my mouse around in, and how to manipulate it. So there are a few important things. One is the origin. The origin 0, 0, 0 are its coordinates. It's pretty important. Then we also have the x-axis. Everyone loves the x-axis. The y-axis, and also the z-axis. And then the respective planes, the side one, the bottom one, and the other side one. Most of the time we're going to work in this one because this is the plane that represents the ground. If you look in the top right corner, can I enlarge this? I don't think I can actually enlarge it. But if you look at this cube in the top right, it says top on the top, implying that this plane down here is the bottom one. So most of the time we're going to be doing our sketches in the XZ plane when we're initially starting a sketch, though I'm sure there are going to be some exceptions. So let's get started. Our goal is to make a box. What do we need to do? Well, any original object is going to need to start from a sketch. And sketches exist in 2D space, hence why we're talking about planes. So we create a sketch, and we get to select one of the default existing planes. You can see when I hover over it, it makes this thing here on the left in the browser blue. So I hover over the XZ plane, it makes it blue. Same for these other two. We're going to work in the ground plane. So when we click on it, it reorients us to such that our camera is facing perpendicular to the plane, right? And here we can see numbers. I have my unit set to inches. If you're in the US, I'd recommend setting your stuff to inches, especially if that's what your robotics team works on. The robotics team this video is made for works in inches, so yours should be set to inches likely as well. And the most efficient way to draw a sketch to make a box is by using the rectangle tool. But I feel that it's important to demonstrate the purpose of a sketch in the first place, because it might not be obvious if you're not at all familiar with the idea. So let's just quickly make a square, right? And we'll do it in what I would consider to be a relatively inefficient way, but it's a method of making a square nevertheless. And I'll show you why the idea of having a sketch is important. So from a sketch is what all things in CAD come from. You just saw that I created a 3D object from a 2D object by basically lifting it up and giving it volume, right? That's the reason it's important. Say I wanted a cube with the center part cut out. One way I could do that is by drawing a rectangle of some sort in the middle, selecting just this area, and extruding it. And then I could have an area in the middle. And the reason only this area extruded is because we drew the sketch appropriately, such that we were only able to select, or sorry, not necessarily only able, but such that we were able to select this area. So let's go back to making a cube, and let's do it in an efficient way. We'll select the plane that we're working in, the top XZ plane, and we'll click the 2-point rectangle tool. If this doesn't show up on your top bar for some reason, you can always press S and type in 2 hyphen, and you'll get a bunch of 2-point things. We want the 2-point rectangle. And what I like to do is I like to click on the origin and just drag. And if you hit tab, you cycle between these numbers and you can set them. For me, whatever number I put in and I don't specify a unit, it will default to inches. So say I want it to be 2 inches by 2 inches. I set these. You can see the lock symbol on them. So now when you move it around, it won't actually change what the numbers are. And I just click and it creates the rectangle. Bear in mind the square, of course, is a type of rectangle. And if I click on these things here, I can like change this to 3 inches if I want. I'll keep it at 2 for now. So let's click Finish Sketch. Here's how we make this into a box. If you're not already on the Solid tab, in the top here, click on Solid, and then click on Extrude. Or press S and type EXT until you get enough letters for Extrude. Hit Enter on Extrude. And then you can either drag up manually or type a number in this box. I believe this cube is 2 by 2 inches, so let's type 2. And we'll press Enter. So there were a few important attributes to how we did that, but the basics of it are how extrusion works is we're using one-side extrusion, which let's just put this up a little bit, as opposed to symmetric extrusion, which let's zoom out a little bit. You can see the plane we're working in and some stuff below and some stuff above. That's because symmetric, I extrude on one side, the symmetry mode is going to make it extrude on both sides of the plane from this object. Two sides, we get to determine how far it is on both sides. It's not always going to be exactly the same. The one-side extrusion is probably going to be the one we end up using the most. And, you know, it's pretty useful. And in this specific type of extrusion, we're specifying the distance, but we might not always specify the distance. And we also might want it to be an incredible length, in which case we might want to do it to another object. But this will primarily be in cases where there are other objects to extrude things to. But for now, these are the things that are important. The place that it's starting from, the place that it's going to, and the number of directions it's going from. The maximum number is 1, the minimum number is, the maximum number is 2, both sides, the minimum number is 1, that you can extrude from a single sketch, because this exists in 2D plane, right? That makes sense if you're creating 3D objects. Also, this operation thing here on the right saying new body is important. This essentially means that you're like creating a new object that is an object in its own right, as opposed to creating a new body, in which case you may be able to move things around, and if you move one, it doesn't move the other, right? So say I do this. Let's see how fast we can demonstrate this. We create a sketch on this plane, and I just draw something, and then I want to extrude it, and I make some amount. If I do join, which is how extrusions on the surface of an object work, it'll make these two the same. But if I make this a new body, it's going to be separate. And I can technically move this around if I unlock it. And there's a way to unlock it. I don't remember exactly how you unlock it at the moment. Move. Oh, okay, yeah. Here's one way to move it. So you see these are definitely not the same thing, right? And if I just say enter on the transform, these two are clearly not the same thing. And the reason for that is because I extruded them differently. Because this cube came from nothing and there was nothing attached to it before, it was pretty simple to create it, and we didn't need to mess too much with the extrusion settings. But I think we've gone on for long enough. This is how you make a cube, and we'll quickly run through it again. So to make a cube, create a sketch in the downwards plane, the floor plane. Create a 2-point rectangle, specify some numbers, doesn't have to be 1 and 2. Click on this, click extrude, drag up, punch in the number you want, and you have your box. That's how you do it.